Hello guys, nice to see you, but it's so strange for me to see you in Wednesday, not in Sunday, because I'm a really Inside Scoops fan, so we are meeting every Sunday with you. The link to the group we will give in the movie, so that's the best idea, to join and listen more to these guys. Karen Becker is the most followed veterinarian in the whole world, and she's a good source of knowledge about how to treat your dog and cat to make it healthy. And Rodney is a huge star and really a big talker and digital artist also, but he loves dogs more than anything on the world, so they connected their strength, and that's what we got here. Zdrowy pies, book.
Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here with you.
Very, very excited to be here in beautiful Warsaw. What a beautiful city.
It's your first time in Warsaw?
It's my first time here. I feel like my father came here once, and my father's traveled all over the world, and he said the most beautiful city he's ever been to is Warsaw. And
nice.
so when I told him I was coming, he was very excited for me. And so far it has not let me down. We traveled all through the old, I think they called it Old Ward. Beautiful, beautiful place.
That's the best place to
visit. And lots of dogs. Everywhere we looked, all we see was dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of off leash too, which is beautiful. They'd have the dog and the dog walks with them and no problems. So, yes. Very well behaved, smart dogs in Poland.
That's really nice to hear. So let's talk about your book. Rodney, can you show us the Forever Book original?
Yes, the original Forever Dog here. This one is the copy that's sold in the United States, and then the Polish version, which I think is way nicer.
I do too.
Way richer. Look, they got like the paper in the United States, but what a beautiful quality.
I love this because it's red on the inside.
Look, see,
beautiful.
No red.
It's nice. The publisher did a beautiful job on the book.
But the dog is the same.
The dog. This is Shubi.
This is my little baby, Shubi, my little dog. Yeah, she's my little forever dog, and believe it or not, Karen's the one that got that shot for the front cover of the book. So she's not only the most followed veterinarian in the world, but she's a really good photographer.
And digital artist then.
She's a wonderful digital artist.
Okay, so guys, tell us where your passion for dogs came from. How this started with you two and the book?
So for me, first-time dog parent. I mean, I got my first dog 10 years ago. I wasn't allowed to have a dog because my parents were Lebanese, and the furniture always came first before pets. And so finally, when my parents moved to Lebanon and I lived by myself in Canada, I got my first pet, and things changed. My whole life changed from there. I changed my career, I changed my profession because of the love I had for my dog, that connection. As anybody that's a first-time dog owner knows what I'm talking about. It's like winning $100 million. The feelings, the experiences, the connection. And then my dog ultimately became my best friend. So I got rid of all my friends and just kept my dogs. That's all I needed. So that's
the whole new universe,
Yes.
And for me, as a wellness veterinarian, it's very heartbreaking to see people love their dogs with their whole heart and not know enough to be able to keep them well. And they end up going to the veterinarian only when they are sick. And even if they wanted to do what they could to keep their dogs well, veterinarians aren't taught in veterinary schools how to prevent disease from occurring, and it's heartbreaking to me. So I really wanted to write the Forever Dog book because it's much easier to keep your dog well than to treat disease once it happens. So I'm passionate about preventing disease from occurring.
And so what's in the Forever Dog formula then?
The Forever Dog formula is the DOGS strategy, which was not going to translate well, I think, in any other language.
But in Polish version is quite
nice. So the D is for diet and nutrition, and that's the foundation of health and well-being. And the O is for optimal movement or exercise, that dogs need to move their bodies every day, and they need to move their bodies a lot. They're athletes, and most dogs don't get enough exercise.
They are lying on couch, and that's
They are, and maybe around the block once or twice, and then that's it. And do you want to take the G and S?
The G and the S. G, of course, is for genetics, right? Because genetics play a huge role in it. And S is for stress, and not just emotional stress, but there's also chemical stress, there's physical stress that can happen. this DOGS strategy was very important for somebody like myself, especially as a first-time pet parent, because when you get your first dog, you want them to be with you for the rest of your life. And it's like, what do I have to do to keep my pet with me forever, right? What is it that I have to do? And for me, my first learning experience, I thought it was ultimately just going to be diet. So I thought if I fed my dog the best food in the entire world, that would do it, right? Of course, yearly checkups and veterinary care. And then, I learned the hard way. I learned that there's so much more to lifespan and health span than just diet. And that's what we hope to do with this book, is to educate a lot of owners into, listen, you might not have the best genetics in the world, so maybe your dog doesn't live to be 30 like Maggie in Australia, but at least we can help you have the best health span in the world, where you're only going to the vet clinic just for a checkup, right? That's it.
And the best quality of life.
And the best quality of life. Yeah, absolutely. So the DOGS strategy is a very important breakdown throughout the book. And it's also what we call in North America the 10,000 foot view. Because it can seem very simple when you say, oh, these are just the 4 things and your dogs will live forever. We know that lifespan is not that simple, but we wanted to make it as easy as possible for pet parents to learn.
Yeah, and to understand.
And to understand, absolutely. More importantly, to understand. The book is a little heavy in science. We brought in an incredible science writer. She's a 13-time New York Times best-selling science writer. But we wanted the best in the world when it came to science writing, because we wanted people to look at our science and be very critical on what we were presenting, right? So that was very important to us.
We knew that the book could be controversial.
Yeah.
We are presenting ideas, concepts that veterinarians are not yet instituting in their practices.
But it's changing.
It is
It's
changing. It is.
So we need those books.
We do. We need this book. And we brought in a third party to validate, to make sure that our interpretation of the science was aligned with what scientists and researchers worldwide would be able to say, that in essence, we're the messengers of this top tier research on longevity and well-being. And we brought in probably the world's best science editor to be able to make sure that our science was square. And because of that, the criticism has not been, we haven't had criticism.
It's because it made sense. It's because after people read the book and they were done at the very end and they got to the last page, they were like, this makes sense for me. Oh my gosh, it makes sense for my pet. There's nothing, especially when it comes to diet, there's nothing crazy to think about when you're telling somebody, avoid ultra-processed food and try to eat as much fresh food as possible. It seems crazy in the animal space, right? We talk about this all the time. I say it all the time, right? In human nutrition science, your parents tell you, your grandparents tell you, your teachers tell you, your scientists tell you, avoid ultra-processed food, eat as much fresh food as possible. That's normal. But in animal nutrition science, it's upside down, right? Eat as much ultra-processed food because it's science. Don't feed your animals fresh food because it's bad. It's an unusual way of thinking, and that's why we hope with the Forever Dog book, we can flip that world back up to where it should be.
But milk for infants, it was also that kind of thing like kibble for dogs, yeah?
Sorry, you mean that?
Milk for the infants.
Oh, milk!
Right.
Milk formula,
Right.
baby
That's the
formula.
formula, and people are believing in that.
Right.
This is better because it's manufactured for.
And it's very interesting you said that, because that's a very good point, right? So this is her life, right? Because for me, when I wanted to learn about feeding my pets fresh food, so let's say that you start on fresh food, it's very important. Because people in North America, per se, they find one recipe and they'll stay on that recipe for the rest of the dog's life, right? Because you want to do good. You want to find fresh food. You want to feed the animal fresh food and the best food possible, but you're not sure what to do. So if you just see a random recipe that's like chicken, carrots, and rice, people will feed that forever, right? So I talked to one time a very wise veterinary nutritionist who said to me, when you make food, especially in the animal world, it's like making baby formula. You've got to make sure that you've got your vitamins and because if you're just going to feed that one diet and the same diet forever, you have to make sure it's right. And you spent your whole career doing that.
And that's part of the reason that I think veterinarians are nervous about home prepared diets, is that a lot of people can do it incorrectly. and there can be malnutrition, there can be nutritional deficiencies that happen. So as long, our book, or the goal in the book was to teach people, if you can't and won't make food at home, how to choose better foods that are more nourishing and less damaging to the body. Really, our dog's health comes down to how much we know as their guardians, how much we are able to make good decisions for them because they're not able to choose. So this is kind of a manual, a blueprint, if you will, to make the best decisions.
But for now we know that manufactured food, it's not good for animals because it's the recipe. It's not true. I don't know if you know Britta Becekr from Germany. She was making research about that. And the etiquette of food, it's not what's inside.
Yeah, we know that. We have so there's a lot of research out there that shows what's in that bag, what's on the label of that bag might not necessarily be even in that bag. We have a nonprofit called Pause for Change where we've raised a whole bunch of money and we analyzed some of the top foods in the United States that's selling, and some of the foods, I mean, there was one particular brand, 50% of the things that they said that was on that label wasn't actually even inside that bag, right?
But the Britta research is even worse because she was testing renal.
Renal prescription diet. Yes.
Veterinary diet.
Yes.
And the amounts of phosphorus are huge. It's
Yeah.
not even for normal animals.
And in addition to the labels being incorrect, the quality of the raw materials, people think it's the same quality of food that they would buy at the grocery store, and that is not correct. It is very poor quality. It's feed grade. It's food that is not approved for human consumption.
So people need to know about that.
Yes.
So they need to read Zdrowy Pies book.
Well, what's interesting is how are we going to be able to communicate that back to the average teenager or the average young adult that gets their first dog, right? Because that's a lot for them, right? If you think about food and in any type of world, for humans, when you think food, you see vegetables, you see meats, and so on and so forth. But when you think food for pets, you think pellets, right? Because even as babies, as children, when people see cat food and they see dog food, they see little tiny pellets, and they believe that that's how animals should be fed. So we wanted to go out and find the world's oldest dogs. Who are the oldest dogs in the world? Who are the dogs that live to be 30, who live to be 27, who live to be 25? Those are the people you want to find. And what did they feed their dogs, right? Don't talk to somebody who's never raised a long-lived... it's like if you want to be a millionaire and you sit down and you talk to somebody who's never had $1 million and you say, hey, how should I be a millionaire, right? It's terrible to get advice that way. So we didn't want to, predict how we think that animals should live a long time. No, let's go find the dogs that live forever, and then let's take that information and give it to the world's top longevity scientists, Nobel Prize winning scientists, Harvard geneticists, the Salk Institute, Dr. Sachin Panda, the people who, they did on circadian rhythm, they won the Nobel Prize for it. Those are the people you want to talk to because those are the longevity scientists who spend their lives in the lab trying to extend life. And they helped us decipher, deconstruct how these animals live so long, how to make it easy and put it in the book, and to give people little tips.
And interestingly, all of these top scientists around the world who looked at these really exceptionally long-lived dogs and then reverse engineered the reason why, all of them said to us, it's fascinating that people think you could feed a little brown crunchy ball from birth till death and achieve health. All of the scientists said, people believe this, and as a veterinarian, millions of pet parents and dog owners around the world have been conditioned to believe that is the best they can do to achieve health, and yet science tells us it's probably one of the worst decisions we could make.
It's so strange people believe that.
Yes, it is.
Why so much cancer in dogs?
It's
connected.
of course,
absolutely, right? I mean, cancer is there's many variations of cancer, especially you've got genetic cancer and induced cancers. But overall, we know in science that diet is very important when it comes to cancer, right? Especially as a human, if you get cancer, instinctually hey, I shouldn't be eating like cake and desserts and sugar. There's something inside of you that says I have to fix that. But if somebody actually understood what went into ultra processed food, those little pellets, you need a lot of sugar, starch to get that food to stick.
Yeah.
And in certain countries, and I can speak on behalf of Canada and the United States, they don't put starch and sugar on the back of the bag of food. You turn around the back of the label, you see protein, you see fat, you see moisture, but where's the starchy carbohydrates that's missing?
It's the same here.
It's the number one source of energy in the bag, and it's not on the bag. It's so weird, right? Like if I told you this is the main thing that's going to give you energy, why isn't it on the bag, right? So these of course are things that we hope to educate pet parents with, so they understand it. So God forbid if you ever do have a pet with cancer, and we've talked about this before, we've had scientists in the United States say, aside from lab rats, dogs have the most cancer out of any mammal. I mean, that's a big problem, and unless we figure it out, we're moving backwards, we're not moving forward.
Dr. David Turner, which was one of the amazing scientists at South Carolina Medical School, he's the top researcher on advanced glycation end products, and that's a big word for the reaction, the Maillard reaction process when you heat foods, when you heat starches with proteins to high temperatures, which is what kibble is. What happens to the food? And there's this irreversible chemical reaction that occurs that not just creates carcinogenic byproducts, but it creates substances that damage every cell of a dog's body. So it's linked to kidney disease, heart disease, liver disease. It's linked to immune system abnormalities, and it's absolutely linked to cancer. So he approached us when he found out that we were writing the book. He said, I would like to talk about the fact that the average bag of dry dog food has been high heat processed 4 times.
At least 4 times.
At least 4 times. And he said, do people know what they're feeding their animals?
No.
And of course they don't. And so it was a real honor to be able to interview him for the book, because he is studying dog foods now as a model of human children that are eating only ultra processed foods, and the obesity, diabetes, and early cancers that are developing in children. He's using dogs as the model because they eat dog food.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's really interesting, but it's really
Sad.
also,
It's sad, devastating.
Because people aren't knowing, they are devastating bodies of their dogs.
Yes.
What's really fascinating when you go deeper into the book is to see that it's this side of the world where the oldest dogs come from, not our side of the world. You know, you look at places like Australia, Hungary, the United Kingdom, where the longest lived dogs have come from. And if you look at the common through line between a lot of these dogs, the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 longest lived dogs, they all lived on farms. They all lived outdoors. They ate what the owners ate. When the owners were done eating, they'd throw the food outside and the dogs would come and eat it. They lived in the environment. Their microbiome would have been extremely diverse, right? Which is was so important for longevity science. Any microbiologist will tell you, the more diverse your microbiome, the longer you will live. And the only way to get diversity is to put more microbiome in your mouth. Apple has a microbiome, a carrot has a microbiome, chicken has a microbiome. Diversity, right? And aside from environmental microbiomes, but when you feed packaged products like dried pellets in a bag, it's devoid of microbiome. There's no it has to be sterile.
Plus added mycotoxins.
Right.
Add in mycotoxins and mold, add in food coloring.
Glyphosate around.
Add in you know, you have to add, the reason why you have to, one of the reasons why you have to heat it 4 times, and another reason why you have to put all the additives in there, very important, is because if you did have a lot of microbiome in the bag, the purpose of a carrot's microbiome over time is to rot, right? Because if you put the carrot in the fridge for a week and you don't touch it, that carrot starts to rot because it's designed to go back into the soil and nurture the soil. Pet food manufacturer can't have that food rot in the bag, so they have to destroy all the microbiome so that doesn't activate, and then on top of it additives, and then on top of it preservatives, and now you have a problem. Now you have a problem. That's a lot of information.
I think our listeners will be like devastated, but it's not only bad information in that book, that everyone is doing everything not right, because there are tips what to do, how to help, even if someone is feeding kibble, what that person can change.
That's such an important point, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. When I was writing this book, I wrote it during COVID. It started out at 700 pages, and it ended up being right around 400, the US version right around 400 pages. So they cut out 300 pages. It was awful. But one of the things that was important to me is that people reading it didn't feel or don't feel guilt. The goal of this book is to prevent guilt. Because I didn't want people to read it and think, oh my gosh, I've been doing everything wrong. Guilt is a powerful motivator, but it also paralyzes you. And we wanted to write this book to inspire pet parents, not to create guilt for them. So the other important point that we realize is that most people are on a budget. They don't have endless money. They can oftentimes have a hard time nourishing their own two-legged kids. They can't feed their own children organic food. They have a hard time buying fresh foods for themselves. And it was important to us that we made sure that everyone that had a dog had tangible, utilizable things that they could do within their budget that allowed them to do the best that they can to minimize guilt or regret. That was the most important thing for me when I wrote this book.
How about like, I was going to say like small tips that you added into the book where if you have no money, how garbage can help extend the lifespan of your pet. That sounds crazy, right? I have a carrot, I cut the top off a carrot, you always say. I have like, whatever vegetable part that I want to discard and just throw away in the garbage. The bottom of mushrooms. People love mushrooms in Poland. When I was going through the tourist shops, I was buying little Baltic mushrooms and just putting them because I love mushrooms, right? It's one of the world's greatest longevity foods according to any science. If I could pick one food in the world, it would be probably the mushroom that I would be adding. The majority of people that take a mushroom, they cut the bottom right off, right? Then they'll use the top and then they dice the top. Maybe it's different here in Poland and they don't do that, but in America, they cut the bottom right off and they throw it in the garbage. Of asparagus.
Broccoli.
The mushroom, the bottom part, has double the amount of fiber, double the amount of beta-glucans, and double the amount of bioactives that are so important that's going in the garbage. Now, if you took that and did it before it went to the garbage and you minced it up or you put it in your blender and you put it, in some sort of glass mason jar or whatever storage container you have and you put it in the freezer and store it, and every day you take a little bit out and you add a tablespoon in your dog's food or let's say your cat's food, we have science that shows that just adding vegetables 3 times a week can reduce the rate of like bladder cancer by 70%. Green vegetables, 90%.
And it costs zero.
And it's garbage. For a lot of people, they throw in the garbage.
Throwing it out, right. And Dr. David Sinclair, who was cited as one of the most important researchers in the world a few years ago, when I interviewed him, he said, when you get fruit from the grocery store, there's always the apple that has the dent or the blueberry that is smushy. He said those dented fruits and vegetables are the ones that have the most polyphenols, the most bioactive substances, because the fruit or vegetable has sustained trauma, and it's out of trauma that the plant will try and repair itself. So he said, instead of throwing those out, feed them to your dogs. And it's such easy, simple tips that allow people on a very tight budget to continue to nourish their dogs in a way that's much better than doing nothing.
So basically everyone can do something.
If you have no money or if you have a lot of money, this book was written for everybody, right? Like, we talk a lot about food, but let's pretend you don't have any access to vegetables or you have no money. Cheapest form of exercise in the entire world. It's cheapest form of therapy and longevity is exercise.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? How important is exercise? And where you exercise is very important. So we really want to talk about that in the book. You talk about fight insides, you talk about, forest bathing, trying to go where there's trees, the benefits to the immune system. If you have no money, and let's say you have a pet suffering from allergies, just walking in the woods and the benefits of walking in the woods, right? The phytoncides from the trees, the fusobacteria that's found in the soil, how these things can help improve your pet's immune system, but no money.
Like we have research about human and the cancer. And the exercise is so important as human.
So
yes,
important.
it is.
So important.
And it's free. and dogs need it. And in addition to moving their bodies, which is improving their muscle tone and their their heart health and their joint health, it helps to burn calories. All of those things are important, but it also reduces stress. The one thing that I think, shocked most from interviewing these amazing researchers was the aspect of stress in our dogs.
Yeah.
And as a veterinarian, when I think about stress, I think about obesity, which stresses the body. I think about animals that have anxiety. A lot of dogs have anxiety and behavior problems. But I was very narrow-minded when my concept of stress before I wrote this book was weight issues and anxiety, or a behavior issues, aggression. After writing this book, my concept of stressors in dogs is much deeper and broader because of the scientists we interviewed. Just allowing dogs to smell, giving them, when you're walking, giving them the chance to stop and sniff, and dramatically reduces their stress hormones and cortisol.
Basically, letting the dog being dog.
Choose, yes. Yeah, and we oftentimes don't let dogs be dogs.
It seems too simple. It seems, and I don't know, and maybe hopefully I get this right. I think it was the Finnish study that showed that 80% of dogs, which was shocking to me, suffer from some form of stress or anxiety. And that study was done in Europe, here in Europe. I mean, that's a lot of dogs under a lot of stress. So there's, exercise is one of the best things that you can do for yourself and for your dog, just to bring down your stress load.
And it's for free. I need to ask about Forever Cat. It's
such a good question.
Yeah.
We want a forever cat so badly.
Yes.
I thought our next book would be Forever Cat.
Yeah.
There has to be, according to the publisher, there has to be what's called demonstrable interest, which means people have to basically show that there's a popularity.
Write to the editor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Give us the Forever Cat. Okay.
Yeah, we actually started a petition.
Yeah,
there's a
great
petition
idea.
online that says, yes, I want a forever cat. And we have about 2,500 signatures. If we can get to 5,000 signatures, then we can present the option to the publisher.
Okay.
And it's sad to me. There are more kitties as pets than there are dogs. Why there is not overwhelming interest, I don't know. We're very interested in writing a forever cat.
I think a lot of it has to do with how finicky cats are, right? So in North America especially, you see a lot of people spend a lot of money and a lot of time on a dog, right? Because they're like, okay, the dog has to eat this, and so I'm going to chop this and I'm going to mix this in for the dog, right? But the cat, for some reason, people are like, just go to the grocery store and buy something off the shelf and give it to the cat, right? So,
or even, I'm sure you see this all the time, that people will prepare this extravagantly expensive, beautiful meal, and the cat's like, no, and they won't eat it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes. But we need the information anyway. We do, and we are advocating to write a forever cat. We just have to show this demonstrable interest. We have to show the publisher that our cat community wants it and will support it. So come on, cat people.
Yes, we're very excited.
Sign the petition.
So tell us, cat parent can take some knowledge
Lots.
from this.
It's lots.
So maybe.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the book is not just translatable to dog. It also is translatable to cats.
It is.
But it's also translatable to humans.
Yeah, I was
because
reading
this research that's being done today, a lot of dog model research is translatable for human, right? They're trying, especially with cancer. You cut the tumor out of a dog and you cut the tumor out of a human and you give it to the world's top cancer doctor, top oncologist. He doesn't know where the tumor came from. That's how similar we are when it comes to mammals. But the information is very translatable over to cats. As Dr. Becker alluded to, we're so excited to write it because we want to tell the stories of some of the oldest lived cats in the world. Jake Perry, that had a 38-year-old cat and a 34-year-old cat. He had 22 cats in his home, and of the 22, 30% of them were all in their 30s. I mean, who's achieving that today, right? And he did some very remarkable things. But every day on my timeline, this is what I love about Facebook and Instagram. Every day somebody will tag me, and when they see a 30-year-old cat, 35-year-old cat, or a 25-year-old dog, I love the connection because today, because of social media, somebody can text you and tomorrow morning you can be on a plane and you can film that person and get that information. And there's so much cat information that we have we want to share. We just wish there was more studies in science on cats.
Yeah.
But scientists are too afraid to study cats.
Way ahead in research.
We're way ahead.
Yeah.
But the scientists joke around. They say, working with a cat's like working with a rattlesnake. Like,
No, that's so
it's terrible. It's terrible,
I know.
right? But those are, those are the perceptions we want to break, and we want to, we want to show the science world. We want to show the pet space. There's interest here, right? There's interest,
Yes.
and how can we inspire young scientists to want to take more action when it comes to cats?
When we were writing this book, I was nervous because we are just kind of the middle people. We are just taking the science. We have this millions of dog owners waiting for information to help them make better choices. We know the top scientists in the world who are doing the research. We just want to take their information and give it to the people. So it was very easy. When I emailed some of these top tier scientists in the world, I thought that they might say, we're not interested in doing an interview about a dog book. And do you know, not a single researcher said no, because every single one of them said, my research is applicable to dogs and I love dogs. Please come to the lab. So we were not turned down for a single interview. We got every interview that we asked for. And part of the reason it was so wonderful is some of these researchers are using because dogs and humans co-evolve together. Dogs are getting the same diseases as humans. They have the same rates of diabetes, cancer, obesity. It mirrors human diseases from lifestyle, mirror dogs' diseases from lifestyle. So when we went to the top longevity researchers studying these diseases, many of them using dogs as their clinical model for people. So it was easy. They wanted to talk about their results in humans, and we're like, no, just tell us about the dogs. And it was wonderful because they were excited to do so. It was really a great experience working with the researchers in this book.
So the change is coming.
It's coming. Yeah.
It's already started. Yeah. It's started, and it's interesting because when you look at some of the comments, people of our generation knew this and were talking about it, but they just never had the platforms to share that information, because people, some like baby boomers, right? Those people that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, we're like, we know this. We knew this before the book, right? It's common sense, right?
Yeah.
But it was important that somebody's inspiring the younger generation. Who's talking to Generation Z? Who's talking to the millennials? Who's talking? It's very important that they come up, right? A lot of people on TikTok today, when they're making your videos and stuff, those are the people that it's important that we inspire them, because they're the future of content creation. They're the future of inspiring the next generation. So it's very important to us that we really focused heavily on the younger generation, and we've always done that. If you ever look at our viral videos we created, like our rawhide video that's in the hundreds of millions of views, we created that for children and adults. We wanted to inspire the children, so they would go to their parents and say to their parents, oh my gosh, look, the products are terrible, and so on and so forth. So the children would help inspire the adults, right? So it was always important to us that we're talking to the young and to the old.
Yeah. So one thing to sum up why people in Poland should buy this book.
Why people in Poland should read this book, get this book, is because there's nothing worse in the whole world than having regret. When you put your head on your pillow at night, and if your dog is sick or has been diagnosed with a horrible disease, the guilt that you feel, especially if you start diving in and start learning, what you feel is, I didn't know that. I wish I would have known that. Why didn't I know that? Why didn't my vet tell me? Why didn't I read? The guilt of wishing that you knew more is crippling. It's devastating. And we have the ability to learn more now so that we don't have to have regret later. Our jobs, we care for these animals in our home, and it is our obligation to know enough to not just have regret for our own hearts, but to do the best we can for those animals. It's our job.
It's our duty.
It's our duty. It's our moral duty to do everything we can to provide the very best life for them. And we can only do that by knowing more. And this book is an easy, simple way to know the latest science about what you can do to do better for your dogs.
Yeah, thanks. Rodney?
Yeah, that's basically everything right there in a nutshell that Dr. Becker said. And I'll just reconfirm it. This is a how-to manual. If I'm a first-time owner and I have no idea what to do and I want to avoid the thousands of mistakes that the millions of owners around the world that have shared with us, the reason why we make our videos and we make our content, it's because the people tell us, these are the things, these are the problems that we're having in the world, and can you help? This is a manual that we built, a how-to manual of how to raise the longest, happiest, healthiest pet that we know today in science. And the world has responded. It's been almost a year, and this is the #1 selling dog book in the world today. Not because of us, but because of the information from the longest lived dogs and the scientists. And we're very, very proud of this book. And
we're very thankful. We're so thankful that we're at this time when people care enough about their dogs that they want to give them a life. They want to give them a good life. They want to give them a better life. They actually want to give them an exceptional life. And this is a how-to manual on how to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's changing also human lives.
Yeah.
Because when you're starting to think, I do everything for my dog, so I need to take care about myself.
Yeah.
So
health travels up the leash.
Yeah, so we all need that book. Then you know where to find it, you know who wrote this, and that are awesome people with their hearts devoted to dogs. So thank you guys.
Thank you.